I started studying A Course in Miracles in my early 40s. I'm 57 now. And so about 13 or 14 years ago, at a very low point in my life, really struggling with my second marriage had just ended, and my sons were living with their dad, and I was sort of in a really difficult place. And the book came to me, we were actually on a road trip, my sister and I, and the book came to me via her. She bought it at a big bookstore on the road, and she looked at it and said, here, you might want this. And I started reading it, I think it would have been Christmas 2002, 2001, yeah, 2002. And as soon as I started reading the book, I could feel that something was happening in here. I couldn't understand the words of the book, but I could feel that something was shifting in me. And within the first month, I had 2 out-of-body experiences, which I had never had before. So laying on my bed, meditating, suddenly my consciousness leaving my body and being taken into what felt like a spiral galaxy and being given messages. I mean, I'd never had anything like this before. So I was like, that book is doing something. And so I just kept with it. And I began to have an experience that I'd never had before, which was peace. I'd never experienced peace of mind before. And that was what kept me working with the Course in Miracles, to have hours or days of a peaceful mind. And then I would go back into my own agitated or judgmental mind. And then I would do what I could to get back to peace again using the Course principles. So that was kind of how it played out in the first couple of years. But I just kept reading the book. I actually didn't read anything else for 4 years. Nothing else interested me. And Ananda has said that they were really beginning to influence me at that point. So they were guiding me to keep going back to the book. So I carried on for a decade, actually. I always had the book with me. If ever I went to a coffee shop, I would read the Course. I was that strange woman on Salt Spring that always had this big blue book with her. And I really started to feel that was my work, was sharing, not as a sort of in an evangelical way, but I would always, in conversation with people, if they were struggling with something, I would always bring the Course principles up in conversation. Even if I didn't tell them that that's what I was doing, that's what I was doing. And I started to see the jobs I had as not my job. My real job was teaching the Course. And then about just probably the year before I had the Kundalini awakening, I started to have this feeling, I really need to teach the Course. This has changed my mind. It's changed my life. People really need to know that they don't have to suffer. People need to know this. And I would get this thought, oh, I should do a class. And then I'd sort of start to make the moves to do a class. And then I'd get this no feeling. And I was like, that's really weird, because I knew that I was meant to teach it. I just didn't know how I was going to be teaching it, I guess. And then the winter before the Kundalini awakening, I had a vision in the November of I was shown a village. And this was one evening when I was really upset about a conflict in my mind. And this vision came to me it was an English village, actually, and it was covered in a cobweb. And I heard this voice saying, these ideas that you have in your mind are contaminating everything, just like this cobweb is touching everything in the landscape. So I had a couple of unloving thoughts that were causing me a lot of conflict. And that was really the first time I heard a voice and was shown a clear vision with a communication attached to it. That was probably the November. And then I had a very intense practice that winter with a family member. I was doing some intense forgiveness practice and prayer around a particular family issue. So I would do walking meditation when I was going to school or work. I would just be focusing my mind all the time. It was quite an intense practice because I could not at that point tolerate any disturbance because my mind had become really peaceful. whenever I would get upset, it was intolerable to me. So I would just pray and pray and pray until it got calm again. So that was kind of where my practice was at by the time the Kundalini awakening happened. And then one day I laid down for a nap, and this huge ball of energy just started to pulse at the bottom of my spine. And my body began to move spontaneously, so I could feel that somebody was adjusting my body. I wasn't doing anything, and it was intensely ecstatic feeling, very strong sexual energy feeling. And this ball rose up my spine. It took about 20 minutes to go from bottom to top, and then it burst out of the top of my head in a complete, like, full body orgasm. The whole body was just in this incredibly ecstatic state. And then it started again, and it did it 3 times in about an hour and a half. And at the end of it, I was just like, holy cow, what is happening? I knew that it was a Kundalini experience. And then that happened to me every time I laid down for a month. I just had these huge waves of energy and my body moving spontaneously in this ecstatic state. And I always say it would have looked like I was having a seizure from the outside, but from the inside, it was just heaven. Amazing, amazing energy. And then about 3.5, 4 weeks in, I began to have this feeling, somebody wants to say something. Don't ask me how I knew. It just, somebody wants to say something. And so I went to a friend's automatic writing workshop. And she's a channeler. So she said, come to the automatic writing workshop and we will find out who this is. And so on the Friday evening of the workshop, I sat down with my pen and my candle and my hand began to write. So I just would turn the page and it would go from scribbling to write. It looked like handwriting, but you couldn't read it. And then about 2 hours in, you started to see Ananda, Ananda, Ananda. That was all I was writing, Ananda, Ananda, Ananda. And so I sort of, at the end of that couple of hours, we kind of discussed what's Ananda, who's Ananda. And I'd heard Ananda. I knew that it was Yogananda. All the yogis have Ananda. And that was kind of the end of the discussion. And then everyone went to bed. And I had this feeling, someone wants to say something. So I sat by myself with the pen. And they began to write, we are Ananda. We are your teachers and guides. This is your life's purpose. We're going to write books through you. And at that same time, they said that I was a teenager in Jesus' lifetime. And that I was a goat herder and I had followed him around. And that he and I would sit by the fire at night and talk about spirituality. And that was why I recognized the teachings of A Course in Miracles, because that's his teaching. And so that was why it was such a strong draw for me. I have no conscious recollection of that lifetime. I did have a vision when I was young, in my early 20s, of looking down and seeing a male body in a long robe with leather sandals. And I was in the desert. So that's the only kind of conscious contact recollection I have of that. They didn't tell me in that first written encounter that I was going to channel Jesus. They said I couldn't have done it then. I would not have done it. It would have been too much for me. So they began to write through me. Initially, they were longhand writing, but they would write so quickly that I couldn't transcribe it. I couldn't read it after. I knew what I was writing when I was writing it, but afterwards I could not read the handwriting. And then one day I was sitting, I think I went to go check my Facebook page or something, and I could feel this feeling, and I was like, oh, they can type. And then they started to type. I can't type, but they can type. And so they started to type Making Love to God, the first book. I wasn't happy that it was a book on sexuality. I was like, really? Could you not pick an easier subject? But what I found out, of course, is that that was the easy subject. The other ones were much more challenging. So about 2.5 months into this process, I was still writing, and then they were giving me 2 lots of information. They were giving me Making Love to God information, and they were giving me personal information, how to eat, how to exercise, things about my past, resolving issues that I had in my mind that were still causing me some upset. About 2.5 months in, I can remember I was laying in a bathtub, and they had said, we don't want you to plan anything anymore. Your future is ours. We're planning it, so don't plan. And they had sort of resolved all of these past things for me. And I remember laying in the bathtub thinking, Tina's gone. Because there was just silence there was no thinking, there was nothing in my mind at all. And what they said was, no, this is who you are. This is Tina, this peaceful consciousness. All of the past and all of the future aren't who we are. We're just this presence. So that was, I'd never sort of looked at it that way before, but this quiet consciousness is who we are. And then they said, now we're going to prepare you to speak for us. And so I woke up in the middle of the night talking for about a week. All of this 3 months, I was having these energy sessions. I would lay down for an hour every day, and I would have these massive energy surges through my body. And then one day I did that, and after that week of waking up in the middle of the night, and they began to speak. There was a whole bunch of energy around my throat, and then they began to speak, and their first lecture was about unconditional love. And that was it. They were off to the races. So I would then channel 5 or 6 times a day. The voice was very mechanical in the beginning. They didn't want any recordings. They said, we don't want any bad recordings of us out there, which I thought was kind of funny. And then, they began to speak. And then I started to do some small gatherings, just practicing and channeling in front of people. And that winter, we finished that book. And then, of course, the Great Minds book came through when I had been channeling a year at that point. So the first year, I really fell in love with Ananda. They really became, I guess, my best friends over that year. Because it's just a complete surrender, physical, mental, emotional surrender to the process, which I guess is what you do when you fall in love with someone, is you let your defenses down, and that was what I did with them. So that was how this all began, and then the Great Minds book came through in 1 month, where I channeled the 20 celebrities, and that was a very interesting experience. And around the 15th person in that book, because there were so many famous people, I had this feeling, I wonder who number 20 is going to be. I thought Gandhi, Elvis, or somebody. I was just like, just don't be Jesus. And for a few people, I was just saying, just don't be Jesus. And of course, it was. And then at that point, I was like, of course it's Jesus. You've been studying his book for 12, 13 years. You know, it was like I had a blind spot of realizing that I've been a student of Jesus for 13 years doing A Course in Miracles at that point. But then all of my fears about persecution, about insanity, the church coming after me, I really had to go through a process of coming to terms with what was happening. And of course, he channeled the chapter at the end of Great Minds Speak to You. And then the next morning he said, I want you to write my autobiography. And so I was like, all right. He asked me to read the New Testament before I channeled the book. So I did that. And then I did 40 channeling sessions with him to produce the text for the book. But it actually took me about 1.5 years to transcribe it because I kept putting it off. It was overwhelming at times to be writing this book. So I was working on another book at the same time, but it was a whole process to accept that I was channeling Jesus, and that this material was, it made sense to me because I'd never really bought into the old school teachings of him or the church's teachings. So that was a whole 1.5 year process. And my 2 sons, Kieran and Alex, both joined in that process. We all moved in together. and they began their own study of A Course in Miracles, and we were channeling every night, and it was a really amazing time, family time. So both my sons have done the Course in Miracles and have dedicated that year or two to doing that, which I was not expecting as a mother of young men at all. And here we are now. At the end of 2014, I came out. It was actually Gay Pride weekend. There was a lot of postings on Facebook on Salt Spring Island, and I said, I'm coming out. I channel Jesus. That was my big coming out expression there. And so you've seen my videos. All of these videos were done by myself with my iPhone, and I just kept allowing the information to come through. I got the publishing deal with Light Technology, and it's just been this slow evolution, although I guess it's not that slow. It's happening quite quickly. And so this is the first British excursion. And I will now stop talking and let Ananda talk to you. And we'll see what they have to say. Let me just have a sip of my drink here. Does anyone have any questions about that? Just quickly, no? Okay, I'll see you guys in a little while. We're with you again, dear ones. We say welcome, welcome to all of you. You have been called. You have been called to this meeting. None of you are here by accident. We are Ananda. We are your friends. We are your teachers. We are here to assist you in your consciousness evolution. You have called us here as we have called you to this particular meeting. You have called us to this place that you call Earth, in this time, space, reality that you think is your life. We are a group consciousness. That means we are not bound by bodies as you are. And you can see that this being, our dear channel, our dear one, as we refer to her, is not bound by her body either. You have been trained into believing that your bodies are you, and they are not. Your consciousness enlivens the body. Your consciousness temporarily uses the body as a vehicle for experience gathering and creation. And that is what we want you to come to truly grasp as you go on this journey through your own consciousness. For that is what you are doing. You are traveling through your own ideas and thoughts. You are traveling through your own fears and insecurities, and you are traveling through your own nightmares at times. But what we want you to know is that you do not need to suffer on this journey. You do not need to fear the consciousness that you are traveling through. It is only confused. It is only misdirected. It is only badly trained, we will say. And so you have the opportunity, as you come in contact with this information, to begin to understand that the fears you have in your mind are only ideas. They are only concepts that you have created to keep separation alive. Why have you done this? Well, you have taken yourself away from oneness. You have created bodies. You have created this place that is a place of separation. And you have done a magnificent job of making this place. You have believed your dream, hook, line, and sinker. You are deeply immersed in illusion. You are deeply immersed in fear and separation. But what is happening on your planet is an evolution that is inexorable. It is inevitable. You are rising up in frequency to a new place. This world is shifting. This world is changing. And those of you that have come in touch with this teaching know it inside of you. You can feel that there is something happening. There are many beings who cannot feel that there is something good happening. They feel as if something bad is happening because they feel a shift in frequency. The shift in frequency brings up your fears. Why? Because when you are in a lower frequency, you can hide things, you can disguise things. When your frequency begins to shift up towards love, anything that is out of accord with love cannot stay in the mind. And that is what is happening to those of you that are on this journey. Many of you can feel as if it is getting worse rather than better. And that is because your frequency is going up, and anything that is out of accord with that ever increasing frequency has to be removed from the mind. You must remember, everything is in your mind. All of your fears are in your mind. All of your judgments are in your mind. All of your hatreds are in your mind. All of your belief in separation is in your mind. It is not anywhere else. It is the only place that it can come up to be cleared is in your mind. There is no other way for it to be cleared. However, what you have done is put these things, these fears, these judgments, these anxieties seemingly into the world. You have put them into other people, places, and things. And when you encounter those people, places, and things, then that thing that you think you have saved yourself from, that fear, that judgment, that hatred, comes up in the mind. It is arising as you get closer to the place, the person, the place, or the thing in which you have put it. And so it seems as if it is out in the world, but it is not out in the world, dear ones. It is in your own minds. And this, of course, is why we recommend that you do the lessons of A Course in Miracles, because this is the only place that you can change the world, is in changing your mind. Now, we have come here as a group consciousness to help you on this journey. First of all, we must help you understand what is happening and what has happened to you. For most of you, you believe that you are an individual in a body, a physical body, and that when the physical body dies, you die. You believe that your upsets and irritations are because of what other people are doing. You think it is your mother, your brother, your lover that is causing the problem. Or the Syrians, or the Israelis, or the South Africans that are causing your problem. But they are not causing your problem. They are merely the scapegoat that you have created to keep separation alive. So we are here from a frequency of love to help. All of your difficulties are because you are incorrectly identifying with separation. And the solution, of course, for separation is love. And that is the big challenge, because you have all chosen not love. You have all come into separation. You have all created these bodies because you have separated yourself from oneness, from that which you would call God. And that is why this place is such a challenge. That is why this place causes so much suffering. That is why this place is so full of war and divorce and arguments and gossip and sickness. These are all of the things that demonstrate your separation from love. And so our assignment is to help you relieve the suffering that separation is causing you. And that is all that Jesus taught when he came to the earth so many years ago. He was bringing this teaching forth, and he will speak to you all later on today. But we are the introductory act, we will say. We bring your frequency up a little bit. We get you relaxed. We get you calm and centered. And we begin the process of your frequency shift. We want you to know that all of you in this room right now are having your frequencies shifted. And as we continue on through this conversation, we would like you to take a moment now to close your eyes, and we would like you to just give us permission to adjust you as we go through this journey together today. We have the ability to shift your frequency up with your permission. We have the ability to make small adjustments to your nervous system with your permission. We have the ability to open your hearts with your permission. We have the ability to influence your thoughts a little bit with your permission. We cannot come in and override your systems. We cannot come in and override your free will. But with your permission, we can make small adjustments throughout the day-to-day. And if you would give us permission, and you are not forced into this at all, if you do not feel comfortable with this, we do not want you to do it. It is only with your free will and absolute consent that we will raise your frequency up as much as we are able without causing any disturbance in your body-mind complex today. But we have the ability to do this. So if you would like to have a small adjustment made today, give us permission in your mind in this moment, and we will comply with your wishes. We are Ananda. We are a group consciousness. That means that there are many beings in our collective. There are many, many beings who have different talents. There are many, many beings who have different experiences. Some of us are beings that have incarnated on your plane. And so we understand what it is like to be in a body. We understand what it is like to be driven by appetites. We understand what it is like to fear. We understand what it is like to be confused. There are others of us that come from other places and times, what you would call other star systems. You would call us, some of us, extraterrestrial beings. But those of us that are what you would consider extraterrestrial beings consider you extraterrestrial beings. So it is a fair game, so to speak. Some of us have never incarnated into physical bodies, and we have come from higher realms to bring a higher frequency into this conversation. We want you to know that this conversation is very important. Your planet is at a crossroads. It is at a precipice too, if you want to look at it that way. You have delved deeply into the material. You have delved deeply into fear. You have delved deeply into separation. And you are beginning to see the physical consequences of this immersion into these lower frequencies. And it is important for you now to look around your world and to look at your bodies and to look at your systems of governance, your systems of economics, your systems of industrial manufacture, your systems of food production. And it is important for you to understand that they are taking you on a journey towards the annihilation of your planet. Now, your planet, as you know it, will survive. She is a being of her own self-determination. She can live fine without you. You cannot live without her. And so this is part of the journey that you must all go on as individual beings making decisions each day. One of the great decisions that you are asking questions about is your food. What is it okay to eat? Can I eat this? Can I eat that? What we want you to know is that your food production systems are devastating your planet. Your food production systems are hurting your bodies. Your food production systems are contaminated to quite a degree. We do not ask you to change your food for fun. We do not ask you to change your food to annoy you or to cause you conflict. We ask you to change your food because it is important not only for your health, because of the contamination of your food systems, not only with chemicals, but with fear and suffering. Your industrially raised animals suffer tremendously. And so this is an important thing for you to understand, that you are supporting when you buy meat that is raised in that way. You are giving money to systems that are unloving, that are cruel, that are terrorizing sentient beings. And this is what we want you to think of when you purchase meat. How did this animal live? Do I want to support this? These are some of the actions that are causing direct consequence. We want you to understand this. The same thing goes with your food that is produced with chemicals. There are beings who are working in those fields. There are animals and bees and butterflies that are killed by those chemicals. And there are humans who are being killed by those chemicals. Many of your digestive and emotional problems are coming from this contaminated food supply. Now, as you study A Course in Miracles, as you align yourself with these non-dualistic teachings, you will come to see that there are influences and thought processes and powers that be within the collective consciousness that are going to override these systems eventually. But we want you to know that in supporting certain systems, you are making a statement of your values. You are making a statement of love or not love. And it is important for you to understand that this planet can live very well without you. This planet will recover if you do not make it, but you will not recover if you do not make it. And so this is what we want you to look at as we ask you to shift and change some of these products that you buy, some of these systems that you support. Think about where you are spending your money. Think about what you are buying. Think about who made the thing that you are buying. Think about where it was made, where it was grown. Is the system that you are supporting, is it local? Is it healthy? Is it sustainable? If it is not, then we would like you to begin to seek out those suppliers of sustainable, organic, local products. Now, look around the city. Our dear one had a bit of a journey into this urban center, and she begins to feel in her body-mind complex the difficulty of the urban life. And we would like all of you that are living an urban life to begin to entertain the idea that perhaps finding more time to be in nature is an important priority for you. The frequency of these big urban centers is very draining. There are lower forms of consciousness that collect in urban centers. This is not something that we have talked a lot about, but we want to bring this subject up for discussion in this particular time and place because of the urban nature of this country, because of the urban nature of most of your existence. It is very, very important that each day you head towards a green space of some kind. It may be your back garden if you are fortunate enough to have a back garden. It may be a local park if you are fortunate enough to have a park. And if you do not have a park or a garden near you, we want you to begin to look at how can you access some green space? How can you access some soil? Is there perhaps a public garden that you can get to? Is there perhaps a urban allotment that you can begin to grow some food in? Can you begin to put pots of flowers and soil on your apartment windowsill? It is very important for you to begin to focus on the natural world to the best of your ability given where you are, and to begin to ask Spirit to help you get more contact with the natural world. Because the frequency of cities, the frequency of these urban environments is very, very detrimental to your health. It is very detrimental to your frequency. And that is, of course, what we are about. We are here to tell you what you are doing that is lowering your frequency. Why do you get sick? Why do you get afraid? Why do you get confused? Why do you get anxious? There are many, many contributing factors to your frequency. Now, many of you will direct your thoughts to spiritual books. Many of you will direct your thoughts to spiritual videos and recordings, these kinds of things. And it is important that you do that. But it is also important that you align yourself with your natural systems. That means beginning to pay attention to the seasons, beginning to pay attention to the moon and the stars. These are part of your consciousness. They are demonstrations of the natural cycles and the natural systems of which you are a part. And if you begin to focus on these systems, if you begin to notice these systems, and pay attention to when there's a full moon, when there's a new moon, when the astrological signs are at play. Yes, astrology has a very, very big influence on your consciousnesses, and it is important for you to begin to pay attention to those things. Not in the sense that it guides your every moment, your every movement, but in the sense that you are part of this galactic system. You are part of this planet that is orbiting a sun, the sun that is within a particular galactic structure. The moon is influencing the tides, the moon is influencing you. And when you begin to see that you are part of this massive, interconnected, rotating and evolving system, then you begin to feel less fear. You begin to see that this is an ongoing, ever-evolving, moving and dynamic system of which you are a part, and which is supported and energized by a powerful, powerful force. And you too are supported and energized by a powerful, powerful force. This force that you call God, this force that is loving in nature, that is creative and self-expressive and ever-expanding. You are part of that system. And when you begin to look at those natural systems, when you walk by the beach, when you see your garden growing, when you understand these are not separate from you, they are in fact your family. They are your parents and your grandparents and your siblings. And when you begin to see the other beings on this planet as your family, as you begin to see these other humans that seem so separate and different at times as your brothers and sisters, then you begin to dissolve the concept of separation in the mind, and you begin to identify with the solution, which is the reunification of your own mind with all that is. We will take a short break so our dear one can have a drink. We will return shortly. Sorry. We're with you again, dear ones. So you have homework to do, and this is very, very important for you to understand that as you observe natural environments, clouds, stars, sun, moon, sea, the seasons, animals, you begin to see yourself as part of these systems. And this is a very, very important practice, because you have been told that nature's not your friend, you shouldn't get wet, that you shouldn't go in the wind, that you shouldn't get dirty. All of these lovely Western ways of keeping everything perfect and unmessy. We would like you to begin to go out for a walk in the rain and the wind and let it mess up your hair, and feel the moisture on your skin and the change of temperature, and to begin to enjoy these things. These are natural balancing mechanisms for your physical structure. The light, the natural light, the seasons, looking at the stars, looking at the moon whenever you can. These are ways of recalibrating your electrical transformers. We call these things transformers. You are transforming energy. And sunlight and moonlight and starlight are information systems for you. They hold within them information that is part of the recalibration of your evolving consciousness. As this solar system shifts its frequency, there is information coming to you from the outside that will naturally elevate your frequency. So for those of you that have been hidden in buildings, for those of you that avoid natural environments, for those of you who are an ever-decreasing number who watch television, we of course tell you to unplug your televisions. These are systems that mask, that retard, that stop the natural recalibration that is happening to all of the beings that are outside, that are in the sunlight, the moonlight, the starlight, the wind, the rain, the seasons. These natural environments are shifting their level of vibration. The more you are in them, the more you are going to be shifted naturally. And this is an important thing for you to know, because over the last decades, many of you have slipped behind this natural system of frequency elevation. Your planets are getting hotter, the vibration of your Earth itself is shifting. And the more you can contact, get in touch with these natural systems, the more you are going to be raised up by these naturally fluctuating systems. This is one of the reasons why beings that are heavily urbanized, that stay inside all the time, that don't get natural environments, become depressed, because you are not shifting the way you are supposed to. In actual fact, you are going the other way if you are constantly on your technologies, hidden in buildings without these natural environments. So get outside as much as you can. It is a way of recalibrating and raising your frequency, because this is what is happening to your solar system and this part of your galaxy. Why? Because the universe is evolving. You are a consciousness that is part of this massive system of evolution and expression and experience and creativity. And the more you isolate yourself from it, the less connected you are to it, obviously, the fewer adjustments you are going to receive from these natural environments. And this is one of the ways that your society is lowering your frequency. The urbanization of your society is stepping away from these natural recalibration systems. And so this is something for you to know as you are raising your frequency in an effort to evolve with this expanding, creative, natural environment in which you find yourself. There is a chicken and egg situation going on here. Of course, the world, the experience of physicality is reflecting consciousness. Everything is reflecting consciousness, not just your bodies, not just your society, but the world reflects your consciousness. Gaia, this planet on which you reside, is a consciousness, a higher form of consciousness than yours. And this is not something that you are used to thinking about or even understanding or believing. Your sun is a consciousness. All of the celestial bodies have their own consciousness, and they are evolving. And so the separation that has been magnified in your society through the cultivation of fear, through the cultivation of judgment, through the cultivation of nationalistic boundaries and racial discrimination and prejudice, these have all lowered your frequency, and so you are stepping out of accord with this natural environment that is evolving and increasing in its intelligence, increasing in its spiritual nature. This is why many, many humans are getting sicker. This is why many, many humans are becoming depressed, anxious, fearful, unable to create, because of the urbanization of your world, because of the separation from nature, because of these indoctrinations that begin in your kindergarten classes and even your preschools are training you out of your natural human qualities. And so these are some of the things as foundational elements of your spiritual practice that we want you to begin to really pay attention to. Breathing fresh air whenever you can, getting out in natural light whenever you can, pushing yourself. If you walk for 10 minutes a day, get yourself out for half an hour a day. Bundle up yourselves. Yes, we understand this climate is not always ideal, but bundle up yourselves in a good coat and enjoy the wind, enjoy the rain, and understand that these are recalibration systems. Your animals that live outside, not your poor industrially raised animals, but your wild animals live outside, and they ebb and flow with the seasons. They ebb and flow with the temperature. They ebb and flow with the light of the spring and summer and autumn and winter. And they are more in tune with the systems because they are exposed to them. So this is something that we want you to add to your fundamental spiritual practice. This idea of nature as your friend, this idea of nature as the energy that is designed to help you on your spiritual evolution. So now we are going to speak about your Earth's history a little bit, because it is very different than what you have been taught. There have been many, many evolved, highly evolved civilizations on your planet over thousands of millennia. Yes, not just thousands of years, thousands of millennia. There has been contact, conscious contact with many extraterrestrial societies throughout these many millennia, and there has been a lot of visitation to your planet by extraterrestrial beings that have been highly evolved, that have helped your civilization along its journey. So this is something that is going to help you expand your consciousness again. The stories that you have been told by your teachers and your religious leaders and your political structures are fabricated. And we are here to help you understand that you are much more magnificent than you have been told. You have had a very, very long history that has evolved and grown and been influenced and shifted and changed by much contact with other civilizations. And so this expands your mind as well. You begin to see that many of the stories you hear about extraterrestrial contact are in fact accurate. The stories that you hear about the lights in the sky being weather balloons and swamp gas are not so. There are many, many visitors coming to your planet at this time, and there have been many, many visitors throughout your history. So you have a very, very long association with beings of a higher consciousness. You have a very, very long association with teachings from other places and times. And that is what we are here to let you know, is that these teachings, many of these teachings that have started religions on your planet, many of these teachings that have brought forth these golden threads of compassion, non-judgment, forgiveness, have come from beings of a higher frequency. Not all of them are what you would call spirits. Not all of them are that. Many of them have been visitors from other places. And so this begins to confuse the mind. This begins to worry the mind that has been indoctrinated into your secular society, into your limited religious beliefs, and this very, very short-term history that your planet has been told that it has. You have a very, very long history. Very many civilizations have come and gone on your Earth plane. And yes, you do see some remnants of these in your pyramids and your archaeological history. But many of the influences, many of the energetic systems, many of the energy production systems, many of the communication systems have not left any tangible evidence. And so there are histories that have been lost because they did not have physical material artifacts associated with them. So this is something that is very, very important for you to know as you go into this next phase of your planet's evolution, because you are going to have more contact with extraterrestrial beings. You are going to have more communications coming from extraterrestrial beings. And if you do not know that they are your brothers and sisters, if you do not know that they have helped your civilization for many, many millennia, you are going to fall into fear, and you are going to fall into that mindset that is trying to be indoctrinated into you, which is that these beings are dark, these beings are evil in some way. However, as students of A Course in Miracles, as beginning students of non-dualistic teachings, what we want you to know is that all of your creations, all of your experiences, all of the things that you see and come in contact with, whether that is people, places, things, experiences, dreams, emotions are all determined by the frequency that you hold. They are all determined by the thoughts that you entertain. They are all reinforced and implemented by the love or lack of love that you hold in your mind. No matter whether they are contact with extraterrestrial beings, no matter if they are contact with your family and friends, the frequency of your mind is what determines your inner experience. Remember, it all looks as if it is taking place out there, but it is all taking place in here. And it is in your setting a tone. It is in your focusing on the good and the loving and the kind and the unified. It is in doing that that you have a more loving experience. Now, we want you to know that each one of you is in a different place. Each one of you is experiencing more and more and more of your consciousness as you align with love. As you step away from love and your life becomes narrower, it becomes more isolated, it becomes more fearful. Imagine a funnel. Down here is the separated mind, alone, depressed, powerlessness, seeking relief through suicide or alcoholic addiction, these kinds of things. This is the narrow mind, the mind that is unaccepting, the mind that is unloving and judgmental of itself and other. Remember that it does not matter whether or not it is of yourself or another, because there is no one outside of you. You are hating yourself when you attack those beings outside of you. You are hating your brothers and sisters when you attack yourself. It is all the same thing. So this is a very important fundamental aspect of understanding that it does not matter if you say a hateful thing to someone else or think a hateful thing to someone else. It is still creative. It is still lowering a frequency and is still reducing you from expansion into limitation. And so the lower your frequency, the less contact you have with people, the more fearful you are, the more isolated you are, the more defensive you are, because the world feels like it is attacking you, but really you are attacking the world. And so you are creating that feeling of defensiveness or isolation through your thought practices. And of course, this is what the Course in Miracles is designed to do. It is designed to reduce the judgments in your mind. Every time you forgive someone, you raise your frequency and you expand your mind. Those beings that you forgive become a part of your loving mind once again. And so you expand. And so as you expand your mind, then you begin to expand out in this experience that you call your life. As you begin to expand through the forgiveness of the past, as you begin to expand through the forgiveness or non-judgment of the present, you go up again, another iteration in frequency, and you will begin to meet more people. You will begin to connect with more people. You will begin to become more connected to spirit. This is all done through the practice of forgiveness and non-judgment. This is the expansion that you are all going through as you step on this ever-increasing stairway to heaven. You are going to become bigger. But initially, for those of you that are still in the early stages of the lessons of A Course in Miracles, it seems as if your world is going to become smaller. Old friendships begin to fall away. You cannot identify as easily with some of the beings that used to be friends, even family. Sometimes you feel that you do not want to be with their frequency or you cannot handle them right now. What we want you to know is that in the early stages of your spiritual evolution, you bring yourself in to actually come to an understanding of what is going on within your own body-mind complex. And so it may feel as if you are a little more isolated initially, not because you are, But because in those early stages of development, the mind must go inward. It must stop looking at the world for what it wants. It must turn its gaze inward and begin to understand what is going on inside this body-mind complex. Now, so for those of you that are in the early lessons of A Course in Miracles and that are becoming very, very interested in your own consciousness evolution and in your own increasing your own frequency, there is as if you take a breath in, and that is your self-contemplation. That is your coming to understand, when I think this thought, I get upset. When I'm with this person, I don't feel so good. When I think this thought, I feel good. When I'm with this music, I feel happier. When I think this thought, I get inspired. When I'm with that environment, I feel better or worse. You are stepping away from constantly looking out here for what you want, constantly seeking the lover that is going to make you happy, constantly seeking the job or the car or the holiday home or the holiday that is going to bring you what you want. You begin to step out of the world and you begin to get to know yourself. And it seems self-centered, it seems selfish, and at times it can seem a little lonely. But what you are doing is coming to see truly what is going on inside of you. And it is in that contemplation that you come to terms with the reality, the truth, that everything is happening within you. Your hatred of that person is within you. It is not out there in them. Your self-hatred is being generated by your judgments. These kinds of things become realizations in this internalization of consciousness. The gift that comes from doing this inner work, however, is that the world opens up to you. The entire world begins to open up to you as you step away from judgment, as you step away from a separation of others, as you begin to see every being on this planet as your brother and sister, as you begin to see the world as a reflection of your mind and deserving of your love and appreciation. That is when the world really begins to open up to you, because you step out into each experience with a more open heart, with a more forgiving thought process. And in doing that, you rise above the trouble and strife of the world, and you set yourself above the battleground. You set yourself in a position of high frequency where you are able now to see, this is all us playing out our dreams. This is us all playing out our nightmares. This is us all playing out our judgments. And as I align with my heart, as I align with this guidance system that is telling me when I am on track and when I am off track, then I see that every time I hate something, I feel bad. Every time I appreciate something, I feel good. And that means me as well. And that means those beings with whom I have issues as well. When I judge them and say that they are bad, then I feel bad, blaming them for it. But it is in actual fact me that is doing it. We will take another short break. Our dear one has what you call a frog in her throat, and we will return shortly.